Something I get asked quite often by some of you is, I don't know anyone in my personal life who is into psychedelics. How do I meet these people? So I thought I'd make a video on it. I do get the desire, like when I moved to New York, I didn't know anyone here who was into psychedelics, and everyone that I met, essentially had never done them really. I just missed like talking about psychedelics or doing psychedelics with friends, and I'd be so annoying about it. That's one of the reasons I started this channel actually. It's like a space for me to just freely talk about this stuff. And if someone's annoyed by it, they could just not watch it. But whenever I met a new person, I'd like try to casually slip in. Maybe it's not as casual as I thought I was being, but I would mention somehow that I was into psychedelics. And the response I'd get back would be like, oh wow, those are hard drugs. Or be like, oh, cool. But then eventually, I did find people who were also into psychedelics, and also people who would eventually have their first psychedelic experience with me, which is very honorable. So that would be my first tip, is to be the one to get out of the psychedelic closet. And it's still so taboo to talk about sometimes, and it can take a lot of courage to be the first one to bring it up. Within reason, of course, like if it could jeopardize your job, then don't talk about it with your coworkers, right? But you may discover that you do have friends who are into psychedelics, but they've just been keeping quiet about it because they are also in the psychedelic closet. And be a normal, functioning adult who takes care of their responsibilities, you know, so that when people do find out that you do psychedelics and they've never done it before themselves, they won't be like, this could ruin my life. You know, you can be tactful about it and slip into the conversation when appropriate, like how psychedelics might have helped you out, or maybe someone's like, oh, what'd you do last weekend? You could just be like, I tripped. Definitely do not pressure anyone. All this will help to break down the stigma, and so even though your friends may not be into psychedelics now, they might be in the future if they're ready. Next, I would say, is to find meetups in your area. I think meetup.com has been the most successful for me in that regard. There might be local Facebook groups that you can join. I haven't really tried that though. But there are psychedelic societies all around the globe. I know of at least 3 or 4 here in the New York City, New Jersey area alone. And the way that these meetups work, it really depends on the meetup, but sometimes it's like a happy hour kind of deal where you just freely mingle with each other, or people might take turns being a speaker to talk about their trip stories or experiences, or it might be like an intimate integration circle, or it might be more formal with a speaker who knows their shit coming in to talk about research or things like that. But yeah, I used to go to these meetups quite frequently pre-COVID, and I do think that I had made friends there, or at least acquaintances. You know, the pandemic happened and I lost touch with these people, and I know that the meetups have started up again since then, but I just haven't gone, and that's my fault. But I really do think that the potential for friendships is there. And just a heads up, if you are a person of color or a woman, is that these spaces are very white male dominated, which may be a bit intimidating. I'm a bit used to it because I'm in software engineering, and you know, of course they're nice people. I just feel awkward internally, but there are also some POC specific circles that you can join as well. The important thing here I find with meetups, or this can apply to really any social situation in general, is that you just have to keep showing up, because that's how you eventually build rapport. Like, you can't just show up one time and be like, okay, well, I made no friends, and then never come again. It can take time, and from my experience, there are definitely regulars who go often to these meetups, and then eventually you start to get familiar with each other, and then you start chatting with each other, catching up like what happened since the last meetup, and then eventually you might even hang out outside of the meetup, which is really cool. But yeah, this stuff takes effort. So more on the in-person gatherings, you can also go to psychedelic conferences. These are often more expensive than meetups, which are usually free, or maybe there's a small charge like $10 or so for a donation to the group. I feel like there are a lot of psychedelic conferences now, in the US at least. So the one I go to every other year is Horizons Conference, and that's here in New York. I know there's at least one in the Bay Area. There might be one in Colorado, I'm not sure, but I know there was also one in Las Vegas last year. These happen a lot less frequently than meetups. They're more like an annual thing, and they might attract people from different parts of the globe. So after the conference, you really have to try hard to stay in contact with these people and make friends with them. But I find that it's really the hardcore, dedicated people who go to the psychedelic conferences. There are newbies sometimes too, but more often in the meetups is where the newbies should go, and they like often have never done psychedelics before and they're just curious about it. So I think that with meetups, a lot of the time I find myself talking with newbies about psychedelic advice and stuff, but in conferences you can dig a little deeper. So yeah, at conferences people are they just seem more invested because they literally invested a lot to be there. And then if you're in college, I would see if you have any clubs or organizations on campus that are into this thing. So for instance, there's Students for Sensible Drug Policy, or SSDP, and they're not psychedelic specific, but I think that they're very adjacent still to psychedelics, and I still think the work they're doing overall for all drugs is important. And I just found about this one from last year's Horizons Conference, and I met some people from there, but it's the Intercollegiate Psychedelic Network. And if you don't have one of these at your school, you can start your own chapter, which I wish I had done when I was in college. But then with the pandemic, a lot of things shifted online, which is really cool because then you can connect with people who are not in your local area. And I think that long distance friendships can definitely be as fulfilling as in-person ones too. So I just follow a lot of psychedelic organizations, like their Instagram accounts, and I'll just put their names around somewhere. But they'll sometimes do like Instagram lives and you can kind of chat there. Or is Clubhouse still a thing? Clubhouse was a big thing during the pandemic, and I have not logged in for like months. So I don't know, but they had a lot of conversations there as well. There's forums too, like Reddit, and I know like Women in Psychedelics had a forum sometime last year. I don't know if it's still active. And Shroomery, I don't know if Shroomery is still active either, but things like that. There's also Discord channels, and there's a number that I'm in that I will link somewhere in the description probably. The active Discord channels, they'll often have like hangouts maybe once a month or so too, where they go on a video or voice call and chat there too. So yeah, definitely a great avenue for making friends. And last year I made some friends, or at least acquaintances, this way, and I got to meet them in person at Horizons Conference, which was really cool. Admittedly, I am very on and off about socializing these days, especially since I got a cat. Especially in the psychedelic scene, I'm not active, but even in my personal life, I've kind of become a hermit, but that's on me. I think that I definitely could have forged stronger bonds with the people that I have met through the psychedelic scene if I had put in more effort. So I definitely think it is possible to find and make friends with people who are into psychedelics. And now I've shown you where they could be, so it is up to you to put in the effort and go make friends. And I wish you a great multitude of psychedelic friendships and psychedelic conversations together, and maybe even psychedelic trips together too. You know, I did say I'm not very social these days, but you can reach out to me via Instagram or email, and we can chat like that too. Alright, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!